Last night I heard my sister on the phone saying I'd be gone by Christmas. She already changed the locks to my own house. This morning I smiled and pretended to take my pills, but she doesn't know I've been replacing them for weeks. Before we start, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. My name is Margaret Eleanor Patterson, but everyone who knows me calls me Maggie. I'm 68 years old, and I never imagined I'd be sitting here telling you this story. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who'd have to fight for her own life against her own family. But here we are. Let me tell you who I am because it matters. It matters that you understand the person my sister tried to destroy. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the oldest of 3 girls. My father worked at the steel mill, and my mother cleaned houses to make ends meet. We didn't have much, but we had each other. As the oldest, I became the second mother. I changed diapers, packed lunches, helped with homework, and tucked my little sisters into bed every night while my parents worked double shifts. That's just what you did. You took care of your family. I met my husband David when I was 22. He was a carpenter with kind eyes and strong hands that could build anything. We got married in a little church ceremony with handmade decorations and a potluck reception. We couldn't afford fancy, but we had love. Real love. The kind that weathers storms and grows stronger with time. David and I built our home together, literally. He did most of the construction work himself, and I was right there beside him, handing him tools and painting walls while 7 months pregnant with our first child. That house became our sanctuary. We raised 3 beautiful children there, Sarah, Michael, and Jennifer. I worked as a kindergarten teacher for 35 years because I loved children and I loved shaping young minds. David built custom furniture in our garage and sold pieces on weekends. We weren't rich. We drove used cars and took camping trips instead of fancy vacations. We clipped coupons and saved every penny we could. But we were happy. We had summer barbecues with neighbors. We had Christmas mornings with 3 stockings hanging by the fireplace. Then later 5 when the grandchildren came along. We had a rose garden that David planted for our 20th anniversary, each bush representing a year of our marriage. I was the person neighbors called when they needed help. I baked casseroles for families going through hard times. I organized the neighborhood watch program. I taught Sunday school at church for 20 years. When Mrs. Henderson next door had surgery, I was the one bringing her meals every day for 3 weeks. When the Thompson family lost their home in a fire, I organized the fundraiser that helped them get back on their feet. I took care of everyone. That's who I am. That's who I've always been. When David died 3 years ago from a sudden heart attack, my entire world shattered. But I survived. I had to. I had children who needed me to be strong, grandchildren who needed their grandmother. I learned to live alone in the house that held 40 years of memories. I kept his coffee mug in the cupboard. I still planted roses every spring. I talked to him sometimes when I sat on the back porch in the evenings. My sister Claire knew all of this. She knew I was lonely. She knew I was vulnerable. She knew I trusted her with my whole heart because I'd spent my entire life protecting her, sacrificing for her, loving her unconditionally. And she used every bit of that knowledge to try to take everything from me. But what Claire didn't know was that underneath this gentle, kind, grandmotherly exterior was a woman made of steel, a woman who'd survived poverty, loss, and heartbreak, a woman who'd fought for her family her entire life. And I wasn't about to stop fighting now. 6 months ago, my life had a rhythm, a beautiful, peaceful rhythm that I'd worked hard to create after David's passing. Every single day felt like a gift, and I treated it that way. My mornings always started the same. I'd wake up at 7 o'clock, sometimes earlier when the birds started singing outside my bedroom window. I'd put on my robe, the soft blue one Jennifer gave me for Mother's Day, and I'd shuffle downstairs to the kitchen. The floorboards would creak in that familiar way that used to drive David crazy, but that I'd grown to love. Those creaks meant home. They meant safety. They meant decades of memories soaked into every inch of wood. I'd make my coffee in the same percolator David and I got as a wedding gift 46 years ago. It was old-fashioned and took longer than those fancy new machines, but I didn't mind. I loved the sound of it bubbling, the smell filling the entire house. I'd pour myself a cup, add just a splash of cream, and carry it out to the back porch. That porch was my sanctuary. I'd sit in the wooden rocking chair David built with his own hands, the one that fit my body perfectly after all these years, and I'd watch the sunrise over my garden. Those roses he planted were still blooming every year. 23 bushes now, because I'd added 3 more after he passed, one for each year we'd been together since the original planting. Red, pink, yellow, and white blooms that filled the air with the most incredible perfume. I'd spend an hour out there every morning, just sitting, thinking, talking to David sometimes, telling him about my plans for the day, asking his opinion on things. I know some people might think that's silly, talking to someone who's gone, but it brought me comfort. It made me feel less alone. After my coffee, I'd get dressed and start my day. Tuesdays were grocery shopping days. I'd drive to the market 3 miles down the road, the same one I'd been shopping at for 40 years. The cashiers knew me by name. "Morning, Miss Maggie," they'd say. "How are those grandkids doing?" And we'd chat while they scanned my items. I'd buy fresh vegetables, good bread from the bakery section, maybe some fresh flowers to put on my kitchen table. Thursdays were my book club days. 6 of us ladies had been meeting for lunch at Martha's Diner for almost 15 years. We'd discuss whatever novel we'd chosen that month, but honestly, the books were just an excuse. We talked about our lives, our children, our aches and pains, our joys and sorrows. These women were my closest friends. Ruth, who lived next door. Linda, who'd been my teaching colleague. Dorothy, Patricia, and Susan, who I'd met through church. They were my support system. I volunteered at the local library on Monday and Wednesday afternoons, helping kids with reading programs. I do my gardening on Friday mornings, pulling weeds, pruning roses, planting new flowers. Saturday mornings were for house cleaning. Not that the house got very dirty with just me living there. Saturday afternoons I'd bake. Cookies, pies, cakes. I'd take plates of goodies to neighbors, to church, to the library. And every Sunday evening at 6 o'clock, I'd video call my children. Sarah from California, Michael from Texas, Jennifer from Colorado. We'd catch up on their lives, their jobs, their kids. I'd see my grandchildren on the screen, their faces lighting up when they saw me. "Hi, Grandma," they'd shout. Those calls were the highlight of my week. My life was simple, but it was mine. I had my home, my routines, my friends, my family. I had my independence and my dignity. I had peace. I had no idea that storm clouds were already gathering, that the person I trusted most in the world was about to turn my peaceful life into a nightmare. That everything I'd built over 68 years was about to be stolen from me by my own flesh and blood. It started small, so small that I almost missed it entirely. So small that I convinced myself I was imagining things. But looking back now, I realize those tiny warning signs were screaming at me. I just didn't want to hear them. Claire had been living with me for about 3 months when I first felt that uncomfortable twist in my stomach. That feeling you get when something isn't quite right. but you can't put your finger on exactly what it is. It was a Wednesday afternoon. I'd just come back from the library, and I headed to my home office to check my email and pay some bills online. That's when I noticed my desk drawer was slightly open. Not much, just a crack, but I always closed it completely. Always. It was a habit David had drilled into me years ago. Close drawers all the way, Maggie, he'd say. Otherwise, you'll walk into them and bruise yourself. I opened the drawer fully. Everything looked normal at first glance. My checkbook, some envelopes, stamps, pens. But then I noticed my bank statements weren't in the order I'd left them. I always kept them chronological, newest on top. Now they were shuffled, like someone had been looking through them and put them back carelessly. My heart did a little uncomfortable flip. I walked into the kitchen where Claire was making dinner. She looked so domestic, so caring, wearing my old apron and stirring a pot of soup. "Claire, honey, were you in my office today?" She turned to me with a bright smile. "Your office? No, why?" "Oh, nothing. I just thought maybe you were looking for something. My desk drawer was open." Her smile didn't falter. "Maybe you forgot to close it this morning, Maggie. You've been a little forgetful lately, haven't you?" That stopped me. Forgetful? I hadn't been forgetful at all. I was 68, not 98, and my mind was sharp as ever. But the way she said it, so casual, so concerned, made me doubt myself for a moment. Had I left the drawer open? Was I starting to forget things? No. I knew I'd closed it. I was certain. But I just smiled and said, "Maybe you're right." A few days later, something else happened. I went to make my morning coffee, and the percolator was already clean and put away. I distinctly remembered leaving it in the sink the night before, planning to wash it in the morning like I always did. It was my routine, my small morning ritual. "Claire, did you clean my coffee pot?" I asked when she came downstairs. "Yes. I woke up early and thought I'd help out," she said cheerfully. "You do so much around here. I wanted to take some of the burden off your shoulders." It was a nice gesture, sweet even. So why did it make me feel uneasy? Why did it feel like she was inserting herself into every corner of my life, disrupting my routines, touching my things? Then there were the phone calls. Claire would be talking normally, laughing even. And then she'd see me walk into the room and her voice would change. She'd suddenly say, "Okay, I have to go," and hang up quickly. Or she'd take the call into her bedroom and close the door. "Who was that?" I'd ask casually. "Oh, just an old friend from back home," she'd say vaguely. "Nobody you know." But her body language was wrong, stiff, defensive. She wouldn't meet my eyes. And the questions. So many questions about my finances. "Maggie, do you have a will? Who's the executor? Do you have life insurance? What about your pension? Your Social Security? Your savings accounts?" She framed them as concern. "I just want to make sure everything's organized in case something happens. You're not getting any younger, and I'd hate for things to be complicated for Sarah, Michael, and Jennifer if there was an emergency." It sounded reasonable. It sounded loving. But something deep in my gut whispered, "This isn't right." The final straw of that first wave of suspicion came 2 weeks later. I couldn't find my spare house keys. They'd hung on the little brass hook by the kitchen door for 20 years. David put that hook up himself. Those keys were always there. Now they were gone. "Claire, have you seen my spare keys?" She barely looked up from her magazine. "No. Maybe you moved them somewhere and forgot, Maggie. You really have been so scattered lately." There it was again. That word, forgetful, scattered. Like she was planting seeds in my mind, making me doubt my own memory, my own sanity. But I hadn't moved those keys. I knew I hadn't. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and felt the first real tremor of fear. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. But this was Claire, my baby sister, the girl I'd raised. She wouldn't hurt me. Would she? I spent the next 2 weeks talking myself out of my own instincts. Every time that uncomfortable feeling crept up my spine, every time I noticed something off, I'd push it down and find a logical explanation, a loving explanation. Because the alternative was too terrible to consider. This was Claire, my little sister. How could I even think such awful things about her? I'd lie awake at night, staring at the shadows on my ceiling, and I'd force myself to remember the good times. Claire at 5 years old, clutching my hand on her first day of kindergarten, looking up at me with those big, trusting eyes. "Don't leave me, Maggie," she'd whispered. And I'd stayed, watching through the classroom window until she'd stopped crying and started playing with blocks. Claire at 16, sobbing in my arms after her first heartbreak. I'd stroked her hair and told her she was beautiful, that any boy would be lucky to have her, that this pain wouldn't last forever. Claire at her wedding, spinning in her white dress, asking me if she looked pretty. "You look perfect," I'd told her, and she had. She'd looked so happy, so full of hope. Those memories were real. That love was real. So how could I suspect her of something so sinister now? She was just trying to help me. She'd given up her own life, her own apartment, to come take care of me. That was sacrifice. That was love. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe grief was making me see threats where there were none. I'd read articles about how loss can change people, make them suspicious and isolated. Maybe that was happening to me. Maybe I was pushing away the one person trying to help me because I was scared of being vulnerable, scared of depending on someone after being independent for so long. The missing keys? I probably had moved them and forgotten. I was getting older. Maybe my memory wasn't as sharp as I thought. It happens to everyone eventually. Claire was right to be concerned about my forgetfulness. The questions about my finances. She was being responsible, practical. If something happened to me, wouldn't it be worse if everything was disorganized? She was thinking ahead, planning, making sure my children wouldn't have to deal with a mess. That was thoughtful. That was caring. The phone calls she'd take privately. Everyone deserves privacy. I was probably making her uncomfortable, hovering around, unintentionally eavesdropping. She had her own life, her own friends. Of course she wanted to have private conversations. I was being clingy and controlling, the desk drawer being open, the coffee pot being cleaned. These were such small things, insignificant things. I was blowing them completely out of proportion, making mountains out of molehills, as my mother used to say. I started feeling guilty for even having these suspicions. Claire had come here out of the goodness of her heart. She was giving up her freedom to take care of her older sister. And what was I doing? Repaying her kindness with paranoia and mistrust. What kind of person did that make me? When Ruth from next door asked me how things were going with Claire living here, I painted the brightest picture I could. "Oh, it's wonderful having her here," I said with a smile. "She's such a help. I don't know what I'd do without her." Ruth looked at me strangely, her head tilting slightly. "You sure everything's okay, Maggie? You seem a little, I don't know, tense lately." "I'm fine," I insisted. "Really, just adjusting to having someone in the house again after living alone for so long. It's an adjustment, that's all." She didn't look convinced, but she let it go. I convinced my children everything was perfect, too. When Sarah called and asked how things were with Aunt Claire, I gushed about how helpful she was, how nice it was to have company. "That's great, Mom," Sarah said. "I was worried about you being alone. I'm so glad Aunt Claire stepped up. See? Everyone thought it was a good arrangement. Everyone thought Claire was wonderful. I was the only one seeing problems that didn't exist. I decided right then to stop being suspicious, to stop looking for hidden meanings in innocent actions, to trust my sister the way she deserved to be trusted, to appreciate her sacrifice instead of questioning her motives. I decided to give her complete benefit of the doubt. It was the biggest mistake of my life. Because while I was busy convincing myself everything was fine, Claire was busy executing her plan. And with every day I spent in denial, I was giving her exactly what she needed: time, access, and my complete, blind trust. The day my world tilted on its axis was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were grocery days, and Claire had offered to go for me. "You stay home and rest, Maggie," she'd said sweetly that morning. "You look tired. I'll pick up everything on the list." I'd thanked her, feeling another pang of guilt, forever doubting her. See? She was taking care of me. She was being kind. I was in the living room reading a book and enjoying the quiet house when I heard it. A buzzing sound coming from the kitchen. Once, twice, 3 times. Claire's phone. She'd left it on the counter when she rushed out. I tried to ignore it. I really did. It wasn't my business. Privacy, remember? Everyone deserves privacy. But the phone buzzed again and again. Someone was really trying to reach her. What if it was an emergency? What if she needed to know right away? I got up, my book sliding off my lap, and walked into the kitchen. My heart was already beating faster, though I didn't understand why. Some instinct, some primal warning system deep in my brain was screaming at me. The phone screen was lit up. I could see the notification without even touching it. "R. Did you get her to sign yet? We're running out of time." I stared at those words, read them once, twice, 3 times. Get her to sign yet. Her. Me. They were talking about me. My hands started trembling. I shouldn't look. I shouldn't invade her privacy. This was wrong. But something stronger than politeness, stronger than guilt, made me pick up that phone. There was no password when she was at home. She told me she only used the password when she went out. "I trust you, Maggie," she'd said. "We're family." I opened the message thread. What I saw made my blood turn to ice. Message after message between Claire and someone saved as R. I scrolled up with shaking fingers, my breath coming faster and faster as I read. Claire, she's stubborn, won't sign anything. R. Increase the dosage, make her more confused. Claire, I'm trying. But her kids video call every week. They'll notice if she's too out of it. R. Then we move to Plan B, the nursing home route. Get a doctor to declare her incompetent. Claire, that'll cost money. Morrison wants $5,000 cash. R. It's an investment. That house is worth $600K. We can afford $5,000. Claire, I know. I just wish she'd hurry up and either sign or lose her mind completely. I'm tired of playing nice. R. Patience, baby. By Christmas, you'll have everything, I promise. The phone slipped from my hands and clattered onto the counter. I grabbed the edge of the sink to steady myself because my legs had turned to water. My heart was hammering so hard, I thought it might burst through my chest. The dosage. Increase the dosage. What dosage? What were they giving me? And then I remembered. The pills. Claire had been so insistent about giving me my medications personally. "Let me organize them for you, Maggie. You don't want to accidentally take the wrong thing." She'd taken all my pill bottles, sorted them into a daily organizer, and handed them to me at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I thought she was being helpful. Oh God, what had she been giving me? My mind raced back over the past 3 months, the dizzy spells, the foggy feeling in my head, the exhaustion that made me want to sleep all afternoon, the moments where I'd feel confused about simple things, where words would slip away from me mid-sentence. I thought I was just getting older, declining naturally. But it wasn't natural. It wasn't age. She was drugging me. My own sister was poisoning me. I heard it then. The sound that made my heart stop completely. The garage door opening. Claire was home. I grabbed her phone, placed it exactly where it had been, screen down, and forced my shaking legs to carry me back to the living room. I picked up my book with trembling hands. When she walked in carrying grocery bags, I was sitting in my chair, the picture of calm. "I'm back," she called cheerfully. "Did you miss me?" I looked up at her, at this stranger wearing my sister's face, at this monster who'd been slowly destroying me while smiling and calling it love. "Of course," I said, and somehow my voice didn't shake. "Did you get everything on the list?" "Every single thing," she said with a bright smile. "Every single thing. Including, I was certain, whatever poison she'd been putting in my pills. She had no idea that everything had just changed. That I knew. That the helpless old woman she'd been manipulating was gone. And in her place was someone who was going to fight back. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those text messages burned into my brain. Increase the dosage. She'll be gone by Christmas. That house is worth $600K. I lay in bed, staring at the darkness, listening to the house settle around me. This house, my house, the one David and I built with our own hands, the one Claire was planning to steal. At dinner, she'd handed me my pills like always. 3 small tablets in a little paper cup, along with a glass of water. "Here you go, Maggie. Don't forget your medication." I'd smiled at her, thanked her, and when she turned back to the stove to dish out the meatloaf, I'd done something I'd never done before. I'd palmed the pills instead of swallowing them, tucked them into my napkin while I pretended to drink the water. "Good girl," she'd said, watching me. "We need to keep you healthy." Healthy. The word made me want to scream. Now at 2 a.m, I crept out of bed as quietly as I could. My bedroom door creaked slightly as I opened it, and I froze, listening. Claire's room was down the hall. I could hear her soft snoring. She was asleep. I tiptoed to the bathroom and locked the door behind me. My hands were still shaking as I pulled the crumpled napkin from my bathrobe pocket and unfolded it carefully. 3 pills. I'd hidden them after dinner, waiting for this moment. Under the harsh bathroom light, I examined them closely. They were small, white, round. They looked almost identical to my blood pressure medication. Almost, but not quite. The markings were different. The shape was slightly off. I pulled out my phone and took a picture of them. Then I typed the markings into Google, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The results made my stomach drop. Lorazepam, a powerful sedative, used for anxiety and insomnia. Side effects: drowsiness, confusion, dizziness, memory problems, lack of coordination, fatigue. Every single symptom I'd been experiencing for the past 3 months. This wasn't my blood pressure medication. This was something designed to make me confused, weak, dependent. Something designed to make me look like I was losing my mind. I sat down on the bathroom floor, my back against the tub, and covered my mouth with my hand to muffle the sob that wanted to escape. How long had she been doing this? Since she moved in? Had every single pill she'd given me been fake? I thought about all those moments where I'd felt foggy and confused, where I'd forgotten simple things, where Sarah or Michael had called and I'd struggled to follow the conversation. My words slurring slightly. They must have been so worried. and Claire had been there, reinforcing it. Mom's just tired, she'd probably told them. She's getting older. It's natural. Natural. There was nothing natural about this. This was calculated, deliberate, evil. I pulled myself together and crept back to my bedroom. I needed to know more. I needed to understand the full scope of what she was doing. So I waited. The next evening, Claire took a shower before bed. I heard the water running. This was my chance. I slipped into her bedroom, my heart hammering. Her phone was charging on the nightstand. I grabbed it, my fingers flying across the screen, scrolling through more messages with R. And that's when I discovered the worst part. R wasn't just some random person. R was Randy, her ex-husband, the man she told me she hated, that she never wanted to see again. They'd been planning this together for months, since before she even moved in. Randy. Once she's in the nursing home, how fast can you sell the house? Claire. Realtor says probably 30 days if we price it right. We could have the money by February. Randy. And you're sure her kids won't fight it? Claire. They won't have grounds. I'll have power of attorney, a doctor's statement declaring her incompetent, and months of documented decline. By the time they realize what's happening, it'll be too late. The house will be sold, the money will be in our accounts, and we'll be long gone. Randy, you're brilliant, baby. I knew getting back together was the right move. Claire, just keep your gambling under control this time. This is our last chance. We blow this money, and we're done. I heard the shower turn off. I quickly put the phone back exactly where it was and rushed out of her room, my mind reeling. This wasn't just about stealing my house. This was about destroying my entire life, my reputation, my relationships with my children, everything. Claire was going to have me declared insane, lock me in a facility, sell everything I owned, and disappear with a man I thought she'd divorced. And she was doing it all while pretending to love me, while calling me Maggie and making me dinner and tucking me in at night. The sister I'd loved my entire life didn't exist anymore. Maybe she never had. Over the next 3 days, I became a detective in my own home. While Claire thought I was declining further into confusion, I was actually sharper than I'd been in months. Funny how clarity comes when you stop taking poison. I continued palming the pills she gave me, hiding them in my pocket, then flushing them down the toilet later. And with each day off those sedatives, my mind cleared more. The fog lifted, the exhaustion faded. I could think again, really think. And what I was thinking terrified me. This wasn't just about my house. It was so much bigger than that. I waited until Claire went out for her morning jog. She'd started exercising recently, probably to get out of the house and make phone calls I wasn't supposed to hear. The moment her car pulled out of the driveway, I went straight to my home office. My file cabinet, where I kept all my important documents, had a lock. I'd always kept the key in my desk drawer, but when I checked, the lock was already open. Someone had picked it or found my key. Inside, I found documents I'd never seen before, power of attorney papers with my signature at the bottom. Except I'd never signed any power of attorney papers. I looked closely at the signature. It looked like mine, but it was slightly off. The M in Margaret was too loopy. She'd forged it. There was more. A life insurance policy I didn't remember signing. Beneficiary, Claire Patterson. Amount, $250,000. I felt sick. I kept digging. Bank statements from accounts I didn't recognize, but they had my name on them, my social security number. Claire had opened accounts in my name, and according to the statements, she'd been slowly draining my real savings account and transferring the money into these fake accounts. $47,000. Gone. Moved into accounts only she could access. There were credit card applications. 3 different cards, all approved, all in my name. According to the statements, she'd maxed them out. $15,000 in debt I didn't know I had. My hand shook as I kept searching. There was a folder labeled Shady Pines Memory Care Facility. Brochures, application forms, already filled out with my information. A deposit receipt for $5,000, securing me a room. She'd already paid to have me locked away. And then I found the document that made my blood run cold. A quitclaim deed, transferring ownership of my house from me to Claire, dated 3 weeks ago. With my signature at the bottom, another forgery. According to this document, I'd already given her my house. It was already legally hers. All she needed now was to get me out of it. I took pictures of everything with my phone, every document, every forged signature, every bank statement. My hands were steadying now, the initial shock giving way to cold, calculated fury. But I needed more. I needed to understand the full plan. That night, I pretended to go to bed early. "I'm so tired, Claire," I said, shuffling slowly up the stairs like a confused old woman. "I think I'll turn in." "That's good, Maggie," she said, her voice dripping with fake concern. "You need your rest." I went to my room but left my door cracked open just slightly. At 10 o'clock, I heard her on the phone. I crept to the top of the stairs and listened. "The timeline's moved up," Claire said. "Dr. Morrison can see her next Tuesday. He'll do the evaluation, declare her incompetent, and I'll have her in Shady Pines by Wednesday. Once she's locked up, I'll sell the house immediately. We can't wait until Christmas anymore. She's been acting weird lately, not taking her pills right. I think she suspects something." My heart stopped. No, Randy. She can't prove anything. Even if she tried to tell someone who'd believe her, she's a confused old woman on heavy medication. I have 3 months of documented decline. I have doctor's notes. I have witnesses who've seen her acting forgetful. Her own kids think she's losing it. Randy's voice came through the speaker, muffled but audible. "What if her kids fight the nursing home placement? They won't have time. By the time they fly out here, she'll already be committed. And once she's in there, good luck getting her out. The system doesn't just release people because family members ask nicely. I'll have legal guardianship. I'll control everything. Her money, her property, her medical decisions, everything." She laughed. Actually laughed. "This time next month, we'll be sitting on a beach in Costa Rica with over $800,000. New names, new life, no extradition treaty. We'll finally have everything we deserve." I stood frozen in the dark hallway, listening to my sister plan my complete destruction with the casual tone someone might use to discuss vacation plans. This wasn't just theft. This was erasure. She was going to steal my identity, my assets, my freedom, and my life. And then she was going to disappear, leaving me locked in a facility where no one would believe anything I said. I was going to be buried alive while she lived off everything I'd spent my entire life building. But here's what Claire didn't understand. I wasn't the confused, helpless old woman she thought I was anymore. The fog had cleared, and I was about to show her exactly what a sharp, angry, determined woman could do when someone tried to destroy her. I made it back to my bedroom before I collapsed. My legs just gave out. One moment I was standing, the next I was on my knees beside my bed, my hand pressed against my mouth to keep the sobs silent. I couldn't let her hear me. I couldn't let her know that I knew. But God, the pain. The pain was unbearable. I crawled into bed fully clothed and buried my face in David's pillow, the one I'd kept on his side of the bed all these years. It didn't smell like him anymore, but holding it made me feel less alone, less betrayed by the entire world, How could she do this to me? The question played over and over in my mind like a broken record. How? 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 I'd given her everything. My whole life, I'd given her everything. The memories came flooding back, each one a fresh knife to the heart. Claire at 3 years old, burning with fever from pneumonia. I was only 14, but I stayed up all night with her, sponging her forehead with cool water while our mother worked the night shift. "Don't leave me, Maggie," she'd whimpered. "I'm scared." "I won't leave you," I'd promised. "I'll never leave you." Claire at 17, pregnant and terrified, bleeding in the emergency room after the miscarriage. Our mother was ashamed, wouldn't come to the hospital. But I came. I held her hand while she cried, while the doctor explained what had happened. "I've got you," I'd whispered. "You're going to be okay, I promise." Claire at 23, calling me sobbing because she'd lost her job and couldn't make rent. David and I had just bought this house. We were saving every penny, eating ramen noodles half the week to make the mortgage. But I sent her money, $500 we couldn't afford. Family takes care of family, I'd told David when he'd looked worried about our own bills. Claire at 35, going through her divorce from Randy. She'd shown up at my door at midnight, mascara running down her face, a bruise on her arm where he'd grabbed her. I'd let her stay for 3 months, fed her, listened to her cry, helped her find a lawyer, gave her $3,000 to start over. "You saved my life, Maggie," she'd said when she finally left. "I don't know what I would have done without you." And this was how she repaid me, by drugging me, stealing from me, planning to lock me away like an animal. I pulled out the photo albums from under my bed with shaking hands. I needed to see them, needed to understand when the sister I loved had died, and this monster had taken her place. Pictures of us as children. Claire's gap-toothed smile looking up at me with pure love and trust. Me braiding her hair for her first day of school. Us at Christmas, her hugging the doll I'd saved for months to buy her. Pictures from her wedding, me in my bridesmaid dress, her in white, both of us crying happy tears. "You're my best friend, Maggie," she'd said that day. "My sister, my mother, my everything." Pictures from Thanksgivings, Christmases, birthdays, 40 years of memories, 40 years of love, or what I'd thought was love. Had any of it been real? Or had I been nothing but a convenient resource to her, a bank account with a heartbeat? I thought about David. If he were here, what would he say? He'd never fully trusted Claire. "She's always got her hand out, Maggie," he'd said once gently. "I love her because she's your sister, but be careful. Some people take and never give back." I'd defended her. "She's just going through a hard time, David. Family helps family." He'd hugged me and kissed my forehead. "That's why I love you. Your big heart. Just don't let people take advantage of it." Too late, David. Too late. I cried until I had no tears left, until my eyes were swollen and my throat was raw and my chest ached from the sobs I'd kept silent. I cried for the sister I'd lost, or maybe for the sister who'd never really existed. I cried for the little girl who'd trusted me, and for the woman who'd betrayed that trust in the cruelest way possible. I cried for myself, for the 68 years I'd spent being kind, being giving, being selfless. And for what? To be drugged and robbed by my own blood? But somewhere around 4 in the morning, something shifted inside me. The tears stopped. My jaw clenched. My hands balled into fists. I looked at the pictures one more time, at young Claire smiling up at me with love, and I made a decision. I wouldn't let her win. I wouldn't let her destroy me. Not without a fight. I'd survived poverty. I'd survived loss. I'd survived becoming a widow and learning to live alone. I'd survived 68 years of life's battles, and I'd survive this too. Claire wanted to play games? Fine. But she'd forgotten something important. I was the one who'd taught her how to play. I woke up Tuesday morning a different woman. The grief was still there, a dull ache in my chest that I knew would never fully go away. But it had transformed into something harder, sharper, something that felt like steel running through my spine. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. My eyes were puffy and red from crying, but they were also clear, focused, determined. I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. For 3 months, I'd been the victim, the confused old lady, the helpless widow who needed taking care of. That's what Claire wanted me to be. That's what she'd been creating with her pills and her manipulation and her fake concern. But that woman was gone now. I was 68 years old, yes. But I wasn't helpless. I'd never been helpless. I'd survived growing up poor in a house where dinner wasn't guaranteed. I'd worked 2 jobs while going to college. I'd raised 3 children while teaching full-time and managing a household. I'd nursed my mother through cancer. I'd buried my husband and learned to live alone without falling apart. I'd spent 35 years managing classrooms full of kindergartners, which meant I'd dealt with tantrums, manipulation, lying, and power struggles from experts. 5-year-olds could be master manipulators when they wanted something. I'd learned to see through their tricks, to stay 2 steps ahead, to be firm but fair. And now my baby sister thought she could outsmart me? I almost laughed. Almost. Claire had made one critical mistake. She'd underestimated me. She'd looked at my age, my kindness, my grief, and she'd assumed I was weak, assumed I'd be easy to control. She had no idea what I was capable of when pushed into a corner. I washed my face, brushed my hair, and put on my clothes. Then I sat on the edge of my bed and made a plan, a real plan. Not an emotional reaction, but a calculated strategy. First, I needed evidence, real, undeniable evidence that would hold up in court. The text messages I'd seen weren't enough. She could delete them, claim they were taken out of context. I needed recordings, video, documentation that couldn't be disputed. Second, I needed allies, people who would believe me and help me. My children, a lawyer, my real doctor, the police. But I had to be careful about who I told and when. If Claire got wind that I was building a case against her, she'd accelerate her timeline. She'd have Dr. Morrison here tomorrow instead of next Tuesday. I'd be locked away before I could stop her. Third, I needed to continue playing my role, the confused, declining old woman. I had to be convincing. I couldn't let her see even a flicker of the clarity I now felt. Every interaction had to sell the lie that her drugs were working, that I was getting worse, that I suspected nothing. It would be the performance of my lifetime. Fourth, and most importantly, I needed to stay safe. If Claire realized I knew the truth, I didn't know what she'd do. The woman who could drug her own sister, forge documents, and plan to lock her away was capable of anything. I had to assume the worst. I had to be smart. I pulled out a notebook from my nightstand and started writing. Every detail I could remember. Dates, times, conversations, the text messages I'd read, the documents I'd found. I wrote it all down in careful handwriting. Then I took pictures of the pages with my phone and emailed them to myself with a subject line that looked innocent. Recipe collection. Then I hid the notebook inside a hollowed-out book on my shelf. Claire never paid attention to my books. I heard her moving around downstairs, making breakfast, getting ready to feed me more lies, along with my morning coffee. I stood up, squared my shoulders, and practiced my confused old lady shuffle in front of the mirror. Slower steps, blank expression, slightly unfocused eyes. Perfect. I walked to my bedroom door, took a deep breath, and transformed. My posture slumped. My expression went vague. My movements became uncertain. "Claire?" I called out in a wavering voice. "Is that you, honey? I forgot what day it is." "It's Tuesday, Maggie," she called back cheerfully. "Come down and have some breakfast." Tuesday, the day Dr. Morrison was supposed to come next week to declare me incompetent. I smiled to myself, a cold, determined smile that Claire couldn't see. She thought she had one more week to finish destroying me. She had no idea that the countdown had just begun. But this time, I was the one controlling the clock. Game on, little sister. Game on. The next morning, I went to my neighbor Ruth's house. I'd shuffled over slowly, playing my part perfectly in case Claire was watching from a window. Ruth opened the door with her usual warm smile. "Maggie, what a nice surprise. Come in, come in." I waited until we were inside with the door closed before I dropped the act. My posture straightened. My voice became clear and sharp. "Ruth, I need your help, and I need you to not ask questions right now. Can you do that for me?" Her eyes widened at the change in my demeanor. "Of course, anything. I need to order something online, but I need it delivered to your address, not mine. Can packages come here for the next week or so?" Ruth studied my face for a long moment. She was a smart woman, a retired schoolteacher like me. She could read between the lines. "This is about Claire, isn't it?" she said quietly. I nodded. "I knew something was wrong," Ruth said. "You haven't been yourself. And last month when I invited you to book club, Claire answered the door and said you were too confused to go out. But Maggie, you've never missed book club. Not in 15 years. My throat tightened. "She's been isolating me, among other things." Ruth reached out and squeezed my hand. "Whatever you need, my address is yours." That afternoon, using Ruth's computer, I ordered a tiny recording device, the kind that looked like a pen but could record hours of audio. Overnight shipping. It would arrive tomorrow. Then I made a phone call I should have made weeks ago. "Dr. Patterson's office, this is Jennifer speaking." "Jennifer, this is Margaret Patterson. I need to see Dr. Patterson as soon as possible. It's urgent." "Is everything all right, Mrs. Patterson?" "No," I said honestly. "It's not, but it will be." They fit me in that very afternoon. I had Claire drop me off, telling her I had a routine checkup I'd forgotten about. "I'll call you when I'm done, honey," I said, in my confused voice. "I think it should only take an hour or so." The moment she drove away, I walked into Dr. Patterson's office with my shoulders back and my mind sharp. Dr. Patterson had been my physician for 23 years. He knew me, really knew me. When I showed him the pills Claire had been giving me and explained what was happening, his face went pale. "Margaret, these are powerful sedatives. Lorazepam, 2 milligrams, mixed with your actual blood pressure medication. This combination could have caused serious complications: stroke, heart attack, respiratory depression." She was trying to make me look incompetent, I said, or maybe hoping I'd actually die. I'm not sure which anymore. He ran a full battery of tests. Blood work to check what was actually in my system. Cognitive assessments, memory tests, balance and coordination checks, everything. 2 hours later, he showed me the results. "Margaret, you're in perfect health. Your cognitive function is completely normal for your age. Actually, above normal. Your memory, reasoning, everything is sharp. There is absolutely no indication of dementia, confusion, or mental decline of any kind." "Can you document that?" I asked. "In detail, with dates and medical language that would hold up in court." His expression hardened. "I'll do better than that. I'll testify if needed. What your sister is doing is elder abuse, Margaret. It's criminal." "I know," I said, "and I'm going to make sure she pays for it." He printed out everything, 15 pages of medical documentation proving I was mentally sound. I tucked them carefully into my purse. Next stop, a lawyer. I'd done my research. Robert Chen was the best elder abuse attorney in the state. His office was downtown, in a sleek building that intimidated me a little, but I walked in anyway. His receptionist tried to tell me he was booked for weeks, but when I quietly explained what was happening, she picked up the phone immediately. "Mr. Chen, I think you need to take this appointment." 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from him, a recorder on his desk capturing every word as I told him everything, showed him everything. The forged documents, the fake pills, photos of the text messages, Dr. Patterson's medical reports. When I finished, Robert Chen leaned back in his chair and steepled his fingers. "Mrs. Patterson, what your sister has done constitutes multiple felonies: elder abuse, fraud, forgery, identity theft, attempted theft, conspiracy, and depending on how we frame it, possibly attempted murder given the dangerous drug combination." "Can we stop her?" I asked. His smile was sharp. "Oh, we're going to do more than stop her. We're going to make sure she never has the opportunity to do this to anyone else again. Here's what we're going to do." For the next hour, we planned. Every detail, every move. We let Claire think her plan was working. We'd let Dr. Morrison come for his fake evaluation. But we'd have witnesses, real witnesses, police, evidence, everything we needed to catch her red-handed in an act she couldn't talk her way out of. "How long do we have?" he asked. "She said Dr. Morrison is coming next Tuesday. That's 6 days from now." "Then we have 6 days to build an ironclad case." I left his office feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. December 20th arrived with gray skies and bitter cold. 5 days before Christmas. The day Claire had chosen for my destruction. I woke up at dawn, my heart pounding. This was it. Today, everything would either fall perfectly into place, or it would all collapse. There was no middle ground. I got dressed carefully, comfortable clothes, sensible shoes. I wanted to look like myself when this was over. The real me, not the confused old woman Claire had been creating. Downstairs, Claire was humming in the kitchen. Actually humming. Making pancakes like this was some kind of celebration. "Good morning, Maggie," she said brightly when I shuffled in, playing my role one last time. "Did you sleep well?" "I think so," I said vaguely, rubbing my eyes. "What day is it?" "It's Tuesday. A very important Tuesday." Her smile was almost manic. "Dr. Morrison is coming to see you today, remember? For your checkup." "Oh, that's nice." I sat down slowly, my hands trembling slightly. Not from fear this time, but from the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "Will he bring cookies?" She laughed. Actually laughed at me. "No, Maggie, no cookies. But he'll make sure you're being taken care of properly." Taken care of. Code 4. Locked away. What Claire didn't know was that at that very moment, several things were happening. Ruth next door had Robert Chen, my attorney, in her living room. They were setting up a camera pointed at my front door and windows, recording everything. Dr. Patterson was on standby at his office, ready to arrive at a moment's notice with my real medical records. Detective Williams and Officer Rodriguez were parked 2 blocks away in an unmarked car, waiting for the signal. My children, Sarah, Michael, and Jennifer, were all on a video call together, watching and recording through my laptop that I'd positioned on the kitchen counter that morning. Claire thought I'd just left it open accidentally. "You're so forgetful with technology, Maggie," she'd said, not bothering to close it. Perfect. And in my cardigan pocket was the recording pen. turned on, capturing every word. The doorbell rang at exactly 2 o'clock. Claire practically jumped up. That's him. That's Dr. Morrison. She was so excited she was almost giddy. This was her moment, her big win. She had no idea it was about to become her biggest nightmare. I stayed in my chair as she rushed to the door. Through the front window, I could see Ruth's house. I knew they were watching. I knew the camera was recording. I knew the police were ready. Dr. Morrison walked in, and I recognized him immediately from Claire's description. Mid-50s, expensive suit, fake smile, the kind of man who'd sold his soul so many times he'd forgotten he ever had one. "Mrs. Patterson," he said, barely glancing at me as Claire led him into the living room. "I'm Dr. Morrison. I'm here to do a quick cognitive assessment." "Oh, how lovely," I said in my vague, confused voice. "Claire, did you make tea for the nice doctor?" Claire's eyes were shining with triumph. She was practically vibrating with anticipation. Dr. Morrison pulled out his papers, official-looking forms, all fake, of course, all prepared to declare me mentally incompetent. "Now, Mrs. Patterson, I'm going to ask you some simple questions. Can you tell me what year it is?" I blinked slowly, playing confused. "Year? Is it 1985? Claire covered her smile with her hand. Dr. Morrison scribbled on his forms. He asked a few more basic questions, barely waiting for my intentionally wrong answers. This wasn't an assessment. It was a performance, a rubber stamp on documents he'd already prepared. After exactly 10 minutes, he closed his folder and looked at Claire with a nod. "Mrs. Patterson clearly shows signs of advanced dementia and is a danger to herself," he announced, his voice official and cold. "I'm recommending immediate placement in a memory care facility for her own safety. I've already prepared the commitment papers. All we need is your signature as her power of attorney, and we can have her transferred today." Today, not next week, today. Claire's face lit up like Christmas morning. That's when I stood up, fully, steadily, my back straight, my eyes clear, my voice strong and sharp. "Really, doctor," I said, "advanced dementia? That's fascinating." The color drained from both their faces. "Because I've been recording every single word you just said." The silence in the room was deafening. Dr. Morrison's mouth fell open. Claire took a step backward, her face going from triumphant to terrified in seconds. "What?" she whispered. I pulled the recording pen from my pocket and held it up. "This has been recording everything for the past 2 weeks. Every conversation, every phone call you thought I couldn't hear, every word you just said." "Maggie, I don't understand," Claire started. "Margaret," I corrected, my voice like ice. "You lost the right to call me Maggie when you started poisoning me." I reached into my other pocket and pulled out the small plastic bag containing all the pills she'd been giving me, the ones I'd been palming instead of swallowing. "Lorazepam," I said clearly. 2 milligrams. Powerful sedatives that you've been giving me for 3 months, pretending they were my blood pressure medication, making me confused, dizzy, forgetful, making me look incompetent." Dr. Morrison stood up quickly. "Mrs. Patterson, I think there's been some misunderstanding." "Sit down, doctor," I said firmly. "We're not done yet." That's when my front door opened. Robert Chen walked in first, his expression deadly serious. Behind him came Dr. Patterson with a thick folder of documents, and behind them, Detective Williams and Officer Rodriguez, their badges clearly visible. Claire's face went white as a sheet. "What is this?" she said, her voice shaking. "Maggie, what have you done?" "What have I done?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I've documented everything, Claire, everything. The forged power of attorney, the fake bank accounts you opened in my name, The $47,000 you've stolen. The quitclaim deed transferring my house to you that I never signed. The text messages between you and Randy planning to lock me away and steal everything I own. Her eyes darted to Dr. Morrison, then to the police, then back to me. I could see her mind racing, trying to find a way out. Dr. Morrison, Detective Williams said, pulling out handcuffs. We'd like to speak with you about Medicare fraud, bribery, and conspiracy to commit elder abuse. We have recordings of you agreeing to falsify medical documents in exchange for $5,000. I was coerced, Dr. Morrison stammered. She threatened me. I can give the money back. Save it for your lawyer, Officer Rodriguez said. They turned to Claire. Claire Patterson, you're under arrest for elder abuse, fraud, forgery, identity theft, conspiracy, and attempted theft. No, Claire screamed. She actually tried to run, heading toward the back door, but Officer Rodriguez was faster, blocking her path. That's when Claire's mask finally, completely shattered. She spun around to face me, and the hatred in her eyes was so pure, so raw, it took my breath away. You stupid, selfish old woman, she screamed as the handcuffs clicked onto her wrists. That house should be mine. You always had everything. The perfect husband, the perfect kids, the perfect life, while I got nothing. I deserve that house. You're just going to die alone in it anyway, you pathetic old hag. The neighbors had gathered on the lawn. I could see them through the window, watching in shock. Ruth was there, crying. The Hendersons, the Thompsons, the Martinez family, all of them witnessing Claire's true nature finally exposed. Maybe I will die in that house, I said quietly, looking at this stranger who used to be my sister. But it will be my choice, in my home, not drugged and locked away while you spend my life savings with your gambling addict ex-husband. Claire lunged at me then, actually tried to attack me, but the officers held her back. I hate you, she shrieked. I've always hated you. Perfect Maggie, who everyone loves. Well, look at you now. Nobody's going to love you when you're old and alone and... That's enough, Detective Williams said firmly, steering her toward the door. Dr. Morrison was already in the other police car, his head down, his expensive suit rumpled. As they put Claire in the back of the patrol car, she looked at me one last time through the window. Her face was twisted with rage and hatred. This was who she really was. Maybe who she'd always been. The sister I'd loved was gone. Maybe she'd never existed at all. Ruth rushed over and hugged me as the police cars drove away. Oh, Maggie, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Don't be, I said, watching the cars disappear down the street. I'm not. For the first time in months, I felt free. The legal proceedings took 3 months. 3 long months of depositions, evidence reviews, and waiting. But I wasn't alone through any of it. My children flew in the day after Claire's arrest. Sarah arrived first, walking through my door with tears streaming down her face. Mom, I'm so sorry, she sobbed, hugging me so tight I could barely breathe. I should have known. I should have visited more. I should have... Stop, I said firmly, holding her face in my hands. This wasn't your fault. Claire was good at hiding what she was. Even I didn't see it until it was almost too late. Michael and Jennifer arrived that evening. We sat together in the living room where everything had happened, and I told them the whole story. Every detail. They cried, they raged, they blamed themselves. But mostly they stayed. For 2 weeks my house was full again, full of my children, my grandchildren who flew in for a weekend, full of love and noise and life. It reminded me what family was supposed to be. The evidence against Claire was overwhelming. The recordings, the forged documents, the stolen money. Dr. Patterson's medical testimony proving I was completely competent. My attorney had built a case so airtight that Claire's public defender advised her to take a plea deal. She refused at first, insisted she'd done nothing wrong, that I was confused and had given her permission for everything. But when the prosecutor played the recordings in court, her voice saying, "She'll be gone by Christmas and increase the dosage," even she knew it was over. Claire pleaded guilty to elder abuse, fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. The judge sentenced her to 4 years in state prison. "Ms. Patterson," the judge said, her voice hard, "you betrayed the person who loved and protected you your entire life. You attempted to steal not just her money, but her freedom, her dignity, and potentially her life. This court shows no mercy for those who prey on vulnerable seniors, especially family members who abuse that sacred trust. Randy got 3 years for conspiracy and aiding in fraud. Apparently, he'd been the one helping Claire forge documents and plan the entire scheme. Dr. Morrison received the harshest sentence, 6 years, and permanent revocation of his medical license. The investigation revealed I wasn't his first victim. 3 other families came forward with similar stories. He'd been running this scam for years. The money Claire stole, all $47,000, was returned to me, plus damages. The forged quit-claim deed was invalidated. My house was legally, unquestionably mine. But the money wasn't what mattered. What mattered was that I'd fought back, that I'd won, that I'd proven I wasn't the helpless old woman everyone assumed I was. I got therapy. Dr. Ellen Rodriguez, a specialist in trauma and family betrayal, twice a week for 6 months. "What Claire did wasn't about you," Dr. Rodriguez told me in one session. "It was about her own brokenness, her jealousy, her greed. You could have been the perfect sister, and she still would have done this. Some people are just broken in ways we can't fix." That helped. Not completely, but enough. I made practical changes, too. Changed all my locks, set up security cameras, updated my will with ironclad protections, added my children as co-signers on all major accounts, made sure I could never be that vulnerable again. But I didn't let it break me. That was the important part. 3 months after the arrests, I went back to my Tuesday grocery shopping, my Thursday book club lunches, my library volunteering. I replanted the rose garden that had gotten neglected. I started living again. 6 months later, something unexpected happened. I met Frank. He was a widower from church, 72 years old, with kind eyes and a gentle laugh. We started talking after service one Sunday. He asked me to coffee, then dinner, then walks in the park. "I heard what happened," he said one evening as we sat on my back porch. "What your sister did. Most people would never trust anyone again after that." "I thought about it," I admitted. "But that would mean she won. That would mean she destroyed more than just my savings. She'd have destroyed my ability to love, to trust, to live." Frank reached over and took my hand. "You're remarkable, Margaret." "I'm a survivor," I corrected. "There's a difference." 1 year after everything happened, I threw a garden party. A celebration of survival, I called it. I invited everyone, my children and grandchildren, Ruth and the book club ladies, my neighbors who'd witnessed Claire's arrest, Dr. Patterson and Robert Chen, who'd fought for me. Even Detective Williams and Officer Rodriguez stopped by. We filled my backyard with tables covered in food. Ruth brought her famous lemon bars. Linda made her pasta salad. I baked 3 pies. The grandchildren ran around playing tag between the rose bushes. Frank stood beside me, his arm around my waist, as I looked at all these people who genuinely loved me. "You did it," he whispered. "We did it," I corrected. "None of us survive alone." As the sun set over my garden, over my home that was still mine, I felt something I hadn't felt in over a year. Complete peace. Claire was in prison. I was free. My house was filled with real family, real love, real friends. I had won. Not just the legal battle, but the war for my own soul. And that was worth more than any house, any money, any revenge could ever be. I'm sitting on my back porch right now as I tell you this story. I'm 69 years old. The roses David planted are blooming again this spring. Red, pink, yellow, and white. 26 bushes now. I added 3 more last month, one for each year since he's been gone. People ask me if I'm angry, if I hate Claire. The truth is more complicated than that. I'm angry at what she did. Furious, actually. But I don't hate her. Hate takes too much energy. And I've learned that energy is precious. I choose to spend mine on people who deserve it. On my children, my grandchildren, on Frank, who makes me laugh every single day, on Ruth and my book club friends who stood by me. Claire made her choices. Now she's living with the consequences. That's not my burden to carry anymore. But here's what I want you to understand. What happened to me isn't rare. It's happening right now to thousands of elderly people across this country. Elder abuse is a silent epidemic. According to the National Council on Aging, 1 in 10 Americans over 60 will experience some form of elder abuse. And 70% of the time, it's committed by family members. Family members, the people we trust most, are often the ones who hurt us deepest. So if you're watching this and you have elderly parents, grandparents, or relatives, please, I'm begging you, check on them. Really check on them. Don't just call and ask if they're okay. Visit. Look around. Pay attention. Are they suddenly confused when they used to be sharp? Are medications appearing that they don't remember being prescribed? Are family members isolating them from friends? Are there unexplained financial transactions? Are they signing documents they don't understand? These are warning signs. Trust them. And if you're someone going through what I went through, if you're elderly and you suspect someone is taking advantage of you, please know this: you are not helpless. You are not crazy. You are not too old to fight back. I was 68 years old when I fought for my life. 68. Society tells us that at a certain age we're supposed to be fragile, confused, easy to control. That's a lie. Wisdom comes with age. So does strength. The strength that comes from surviving decades of life's battles. We are not fragile. We are steel wrapped in soft sweaters. Trust your instincts. Document everything. Reach out for help. There are people who will believe you. Lawyers who specialize in elder abuse. Doctors who will advocate for you. Police who will investigate. You don't have to fight alone. I learned something important through all of this. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes the people who share your DNA will betray you in ways you never imagined. But family can also be the neighbor who helps without asking why. The friends who stand beside you when your world collapses. The children who fly across the country when you need them. The man who holds your hand and reminds you that it's okay to love again. Blood may be thicker than water, but love is thicker than both. I'm still here, still in my home, still living on my terms. Claire tried to take everything from me, but she failed because I refused to be a victim. I refused to give up. I refused to let evil win, and neither should you. Now I want to hear from you. What would you have done in my situation? Have you or someone you know experienced elder abuse or family betrayal? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else recognize the warning signs. If this story touched you, moved you, or helped you in any way, please hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel for more real stories about survival, strength, and overcoming life's darkest moments. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Your engagement helps these important stories reach people who might desperately need them. Remember, you are never too old to fight back. You are never too vulnerable to stand up. You are never too alone to ask for help. Thank you for listening to my story. Stay strong, stay vigilant, and most importantly, stay true to yourself. I'm Margaret Patterson, and I survived.